Chakshunmilitam jana tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Sthavanam Yena Uttale Swayam Rupakaramayam Nanati Swavadantikam Namam Vishnupada Krishavasa Uttale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayini Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatara Shatari Vanchakapa Divasa Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before we begin, Prabhu, is it okay if we do in English? Yeah, wonderful, good. Okay, so welcome everybody to our topic-related morning class. We had a seminar, Meeting Death with Joy. Meeting Death with Joy. Okay. Yeah. You didn't hear about it? Kind of. Actually, I was just asking today in the morning program if there's a seminar. Told me like I would have loved to have you there. We were tuning the whole topic of death in a quite deep and, yeah, I hope inspiring way. We had yesterday 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 hours in the afternoon, and Friday evening also 1.5 hours introduction. Yeah, and it's inspiring maybe because my father just left his body in February. Okay. See, and because you missed it, there is a book on that. A new one. Yes, it's a new one. You haven't seen that one yet. Yes, so yeah, as I mentioned, we tuned the whole topic of death in a quite detailed way. And this leads us now to our final concluding topic of the Vanapasta Ashram. Yeah, so the book is called The Vanapasta Ashram, subtitle Meeting Death with Joy. So I like to combine these two topics of death and Vanapasta Ashram, because once we get a deep understanding what actually is there at the moment of death, with all the subtleties, and then of course the question is more clear, how do we prepare? And that leads us actually to the Vanapasta Ashram, which is a super important topic, but yet it has not really been established in ISKCON. Yeah, I like to call it the forgotten ashram. You know, we have some clue about brahmachari, about grihastha, about sannyas, even though grihastha is also many people's family life. You cannot really call it an ashram, a place suitable for cultivating bhakti, you know. So, but Vanapasta Ashram, it's actually, and I'm not saying that out of false ego, but it is the first book out in ISKCON on the Vanapasta Ashram. Jayadvaita Maharaj is also writing one, but yeah, I beat him to it. Mine is out first. Yeah, there's no talk, no seminars, no books. There's no clear understanding, no education, and people have all kinds of misconceptions. People are very fearful of this topic. They often say, no, it's not for me, you know. And yeah, and people don't understand that it is a must for everyone who wants to go back to Godhead. Oh, Mataji, now you're really hiding behind this chair. Yes, I'm a personalist, you know, yes. Yeah, alles gut. Yes, like this, I can see you. Yes, I like to try and connect with my audience and see them. Yeah, so, and I'm also making this joke saying throughout the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada always stresses the point of 50, when we are 50. So now I'm saying ISKCON is 50. So it's about time to understand the Vanapasashram. Because it's very natural, Vanapasta, it takes a while until, devotees are through the Grihastha ashram and they're ready and mature. So obviously Prabhupada couldn't start, in the beginning with Vanapasta ashram because he was arranging the marriages. There was no question of Vanapasta ashram, So that's why it comes a little later. And yeah, I mean, the Bhagavatam is full of strong statements, about the importance of Anapasasham. And they're kind of spread out over 12 cantos. So, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to make Prabhupada's teachings practically accessible for people, because often people, they read the Bhagavatam, senior devotees, they've read the whole Bhagavatam 3, 4, 5, 6 times, but hey, where's the Vanapasasha? So it obviously shows that Prabhupada's books are the law books for cultured, civilized humanity, but then we need some complementary literature, how to actually apply the law books. That's my humble realization. And that's exactly what I'm trying to give with all my books. I'm trying to simply make people more understand what Prabhupada actually says and how we are applying it. So I'm taking all the quotes and putting them in systematic order and illustrate them and unpack them and give examples and share realizations and all that. And just to start the whole topic, I would like to read you this powerful quote, which I put on the back. This is the purport to Canto 2, Chapter 1, verse 16. And I left some parts out just to make it more concise. The actual purport is a little longer, but it's just so clear, Prabhupada says, to prepare oneself for the better next life, one must get out of one's so-called home. The system of Varnashram Dharma or Sanatana Dharma prescribes retirement from family encumbrances as early as possible after one has passed 50 years of age. One is recommended to quit home just to get rid of material attachment, because one who sticks to family life until death cannot get rid of material attachment. And as long as one is materially attached, one cannot understand spiritual freedom. I mean, my God, it's very clear. When you read this, you wonder, how could we miss it for 50 years? How on earth are we reading the Bhagavatam? And if we do so, are we understanding it? That, hey, this is for me. Yeah. I mean, you wonder, because people often say, Vanapasta means living in the forest, not possible, okay, not relevant for Kali Yuga. But hey, why is Prabhupada saying all these things? Why would he waste his time and energy if he doesn't expect us to actually live this? Right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's my observation, So now let us understand, and in the beginning of this year, I gave a Vanapasta presentation at the ILS in Mayapur, the ISKCON Leadership Center. And I actually gave one already before, 8 or 9 years ago. Hardly anybody came then. And when people asked me, oh, Mataji, what are you presenting? Vanapasta? Not for me. That was 8 years ago, the reaction. I only had a handful of people there. But this time, 8 years later, there was a good crowd there. Yeah. So maybe also because meanwhile people know me a little more and they thought, okay, let's check out what he's got to say, but yeah, so I feel now people are actually ready, they are ready, at least some. But let's understand why this Vanapasta ashram has not been properly established. So there is a few good reasons. First of all, lack of education. People don't hear seminars and classes. I mean, the only person who mentions this topic is Willie Jayat Vedaswamy. He is really outspoken about it. But otherwise, you don't hear any mentioning on this. Yes. So that's one reason. But then the other reason, I dare say, is also because many devotees' family life is not in ashram. And then they don't get that spiritual maturity and purification to actually move on to the next phase in life. Right? Yeah. That's why I have a whole book also on family life as an ashram. First we have to make our family life into an ashram, that we really create this culture of bhakti in our home life. And then we get the necessary purification. That very naturally, after the kids are settled in life, we feel like, let's move on. Thank God the worldly duties reduce and we can go to the next phase. Finally, we can do all these things in Krishna consciousness, which we couldn't do when we were busy with small kids and earning an income. So it becomes very natural when we receive that necessary purification. But very often we can observe family life is not an ashram, therefore there's not that purification there. And that's why sometimes, people get, and I don't want to criticize anybody, I'm just making the diagnose here, that people get married a second or third time when they're 65 or 68 or something. So it's like at school, you don't pass the exam and to move on and you have to repeat the year. And then people rotate there in the Grihastha ashram, and when they're 70, they still have this longing for a partner and a companionship and this and that, Yes, yeah. So that's one reason, or another reason, let's say. And very often also, and again, I'm not criticizing, I'm just making the diagnosis here, especially for ladies, if they have not had this education about Vanaprastha, they start all over again with family life with the grandkids. Then the grandchildren become the purpose in life, and it's easy to get sucked into that because naturally the kids need help, and as a mother you know all about it, about bringing up children, and then she becomes the babysitter, the convenient babysitter, even when the kids are a little older. Oh, can you come over, mind the kids, I'm out tonight, and this and that, So, and yeah, the ladies easily get sucked into that. They feel needed and they don't have any vision what else could be there in this phase of life. And then they just get all emotionally entangled with the grandkids. Yes. And then another possible reason also for the Vanaprastha ashram not being established is because most devotees these days don't have the experience of brahmachari or brahmacharini life. Because when we had this brahmacharini life, we have a taste, We have a taste for being fully absorbed in service, sadhana, and and that carries us. Actually, brahmacharya life brahmacharya life sets the foundation to our whole spiritual development. I was so fortunate. I was 4 years brahmacharya in Australia. That definitely, formed my whole further spiritual development. Very clear. It's like in material success, your student life determines how you go through your, professional career. And it's the same thing in spiritual life. Your training, your studies as celibate student, that forms the rest of your life. So a good taste and experience in brahmacharya life, that carries us through grihastha life, then we have more of a chance that our grihastha life becomes an ashram, because we have the taste and the habits of good sadhana, and then we find the balance more easily. And then very naturally, we always remember that bliss from brahmacharya life. Then we think, oh, I can't wait until I get, to the stage when the kids are grown up and I can once again absorb myself and get back to that blissful life, So, in that way, Krishna's system of the ashrams is actually advisable if we can somehow integrate it in our life. Of course, if we join as a family or something, no problem. But then at least we should be aware, okay, I miss the brahmacharya life, so maybe let me stay in our summer holidays for a month in the temple and taste a bit of temple life, and get into the routine of getting up early, and it's nice for the kids too, and then we can make up for that lack of that experience in this way, Yeah, so, and if I may share from my own life, so I was 4 years in the brahmacharya ashram, then I was married for 10 years, where we established the temple in Riga in Latvia. It was a whole big adventure and exciting pioneer work. So then my husband walked out, left Krishna consciousness, left me. That was in 99. So then it was very natural for me to move on, very natural, completely. I was only 40 at the time, but I never had second thoughts of starting again with some other man or something. No, it was very natural. A couple of weeks later, I was in white, first with border and then gradually completely white. So it was very natural. But if I had not had these 4 years of brahmacharya life, then maybe I would have thought, I need another husband or something, Yeah, so like that, it really is building up on each other, on the ashrams. They're very systematic, and it's a perfect system to actually meet death with joy, Yes. Yeah, so much as a little introduction. So let me see what we will pick out here from this little presentation, because I have a 15-hour seminar which I give in Mayapur every year. That includes the death part, and then we spend also quite a bit on the Vanaprastha, But now I'm kind of condensing that in the concluding session here, Yes, so and non-devotees, they are meditating for 30 years on their retirement, how they will one more time enjoy life, and they make a whole financial planning, and how they will go on luxury cruises on the ships, and this and that and this and that, So, and we devotees should also meditate how we want to spend this last phase in life. There should be some cultivation, some planning, some meditation, Yes. But unfortunately, people hardly even think about this. They have no concept. And I mean, Varnaswami is so strong on this point. He says, when we enter marriage, he said that once at a wedding, when we enter marriage without a clear plan how to move out of family life, already a failure. Yes, that's what he says, Yes. And I once was so bold to repeat his words at a wedding, and the parents of those who got married, they, don't say this, let them first year get nicely settled, and yeah, all right, but still, there should be some outlook on life, Yes. And I mean, these questions even come up in my handbook for matchmaking. There's this list of 200 topics which they should discuss before they get married, to get to know each other. There, these questions are in that list. How do you imagine your life after the kids are grown up? What is your vision, your understanding? And so even before they sign the contract, this should actually be addressed. Yes, yeah, it should. Like the saying goes, failing to plan means planning to fail. Right? Yeah. And see, this topic of Anapassasha, it is such important education also for young people, because then they plan, hopefully, their life properly. But because that education is not there, I come across it all the time, that some men get married when they're 49 and then they start with babies. Oh, well, then you missed the boat for the Vanapasta already, guaranteed. You will be up to 70 years of age. You will be busy, paying for the education of your kids. Yes. Or I remember once in Mayapur, I distributed the leaflets for the Vanapasasha, and I went up to an elderly man. I mean, he was 68 or 70, and he said, "Oh, Vanapasta, I've got a 3-year-old daughter." My God, what is this? 3-year-old daughter when you're over 70? Yeah. I mean, these things you come across, because of this lack of education, Even though I have to admit, I have advised people to get remarried when they're 70, because if that urge and desire is there, it's not just a question of age. So rather than taking it in your next existence, then okay, give it another try. But here, Grihastha Ashram, Secrets of Success. So, third time around, please make it into an ashram, so you get the necessary purification, and that desire for sense gratification is burned out and overcome. Yes. Yeah, but these things are there, I come across these all the time. And so much fear. I remember, here probably we all know Vaidyanas Prabhu from Hamburg, right? So I met him in Mayapur, and I had just arranged for a bigger pandal program with this topic of Vanapasasham. And I had invited all different swamis and Vanapastas to speak about it. I was the MC there. So I was going around distributing leaflets. So I met Vaidyanas Prabhu, and he had some friends with him. He was also a Prabhupada disciple, married. And he introduced me to his friends and said, "Here, this Devaki Mataji, she's giving interesting lectures." And I was around the campus distributing these leaflets. So I gave him a leaflet, come to the Vanapasasha. You know what happened? He's not Vaidyanas Prabhu's wife, but his friend's wife snatched the leaflet out of his hand and said, "Don't you give him any crazy ideas." And it was such an embarrassing situation, and because she was truly upset, she was not joking. She was angry and upset. And Vardinath Prabhu and myself, we were trying to smooth it over. And, and anyway, it's just an interesting seminar, hearing some sadhus talk about the topic. No, she was dead serious, Don't you give him any crazy ideas. Krishna. Yeah, so much misconception, because people think the husband puts on saffron at night and walks out the door never to be seen again. And this is wonderful, Sasha. But no, it's a team thing, between husband and wife. They work as a team. There's even no need to separate, actually. Now Prabhupada says that husband can be with his wife and have her as her assistant. Yeah, no problem. He mentioned this in many purports. But because there's no education there, people have all these crazy ideas. Yes. Anyway, so much as a little introduction. And of course, another reason why this Vanapasta ashram is not established is the cultural thing. Because materialistic culture, spiritual culture, 269 in Bhagavad Gita, they are as different as day is from night. What is day to the common person is night to the introspective sage, as different as day is from night. And in material life, old age means we try to pretend that we are young still, with facelift surgery and so many things, and cool, trendy clothing, the 70-year-old people today that walk around like the 30-year-old people, no difference, with tied jeans and this and that, or little skirts or whatever, so, yeah. And the motto in material life is enjoy to the max, take again the last chance to really enjoy. But then here, spiritual culture, we don't make endeavors to cover up the fact that we get older. No, we embrace it actually and see it as Krishna's reminder. Okay, let's get ready. And now we want to reduce the sense gratification and simplify life and go more into austerities, so the culture is as different as days from night. And we are so conditioned by materialistic influences, That's why we see that sometimes devotees, they're 73, and they still walk around in bright pink and purple and all glittering and decked out and makeup and all that, because that's what we do out there, and it's coming to India too. Yeah, I see it, Mumbai, Bangalore, all these cities. The elderly ladies are still all glittering and decorated, and and they think, for preaching, it's pleasing to Krishna. You find all these excuses there, not understanding how this phase of life should actually be lived. Yes. So that's, of course, another clear reason, because of the cultural differences, that we are not understanding. Yes. So now let us get to a few actual principles. So often people think, yes, life in the forest, how can we do this today? But no, the idea is we accept the underlying principles of forest life and we apply them wherever we may be living. Doesn't matter, Hamburg, New York, Sydney, you can apply them anywhere. You don't actually have to go to the forest, No, that's how the whole thing is meant to be practiced. We simply imagine what it would be like to live in the forest, and then it becomes very clear which underlying principles we can extract, and then we apply them wherever we may be, So that's the whole idea, Yes. So I have a few general principles and then 3 or 4 very specific ones. So I think what we're going to do is that I present some parts and then ask if there's any questions, any further discussion, because if we go through the whole thing, then at the end, you probably will not really remember that much what to ask about. So that's why we've still got 1.5 hours, and today's Ekadashi. Many like to fast for half a day on Ekadashi anyway. So it doesn't matter if we have a little later breakfast or we skip it and have something at 12 or whatever. So, yeah, because usually I spend about 3 times 2.5 hours discussing what I'm now putting into one session of 1.5 hours, So it will be, of course, a little more condensed, but again, for those who will get the book or have gotten the book, there you get it all in more detail, Yeah. So, yeah. A few general principles which Prabhupada again and again emphasizes strongly. No more sex life. He says that again and again. Vanapasta, no more sex life. And interesting, because Vanapasta is not established. That's why we get a little confused about sex life in marriage, And of course, the Shastra gives the highest standard to strive for. In marriage, sex life only for procreation. But everything in Krishna consciousness is a gradual process. And why on earth would Prabhupada emphasize so much Vanapasta, no more sex life? If sex for procreation would be the only acceptable standard, right? Then no need to even emphasize it, because obviously when you're 50, you're not planning for any more children, right? Yes. And on the 1-to-1, Prabhupada was very clear about it, that it's a gradual process. Very clear. It's just not in the Bhagavatam, because in the scriptures, we give the highest level to strive for. There's so many quotes how we should chant purely, but hey, it's a gradual process to get there, So everything in Krishna consciousness is a gradual process, But because the Vanapasta ashram is not established, that's why we tend to squeeze some things from the Vanapasta into the Grihastha life, And that's why you sometimes hear senior devotees preaching, no hugs, no kisses, it's all Maya, it's subtle sex life. But hey, married life is a conjugal relationship. Now there has to be hugs and kisses, and I even have a story where Prabhupada instructs one of the disciples who just got married, you must be affectionate to your wife, you must kiss her. I've got it in the Grihastha book, that story. Yes. So, and very clear, after 30 years of hugs and kisses, you naturally come to the point where you say, it's enough now. And that's the Vanapasta ashram. Yeah. But, all kinds of immature understandings are still there. Or sometimes I meet a young couple, they just got married, and I ask them, do you want to have children? No children, we want to travel and preach. Hey, that's the next ashram. You're talking about the Vanapasta ashram. But because, again, it's not established, that's why people make the Grihastha ashram into a weird form of Vanapasta ashram. So Grihastha, there should be kids. When man and woman live together, there's sex life, and the result is kids, as a rule. So it's part of the whole thing. And it's so purifying, and then when the kids are grown up, then you travel and preach. Then the heart is purified. You've got some wisdom and life experience to share, Yes. But, a young couple just got married, heart is full of material desires, and, and then, we want to travel and preach. So many misunderstandings there. Yes, so, Vanapasta ashram, no more sex life. And I once went with Jayadvaita Swami through my materials when I started giving this course, and he went also through my manuscript of my Vanapasta book, and he gave me his manuscript to go through his. So he was once making a very practical and for me almost charming suggestion, that he said, no more sex life, even that can be a gradual process. And the first step is that a husband and wife don't sleep in one bed anymore. And I was surprised hearing that from a staunch sannyasi. So of course many grihasthas already do that in their married life anyway, but then obviously he knows not everybody does. I guess he stays with grihasthas and he sees the big double beds there, so yeah. And there are stories where Krishna and Rukmini are lying in bed, and Rukmini is cursing the rooster, because as soon as the rooster crows, Krishna gets up, and she would have liked to be in bed with him a little longer, So, I mean, it is part of a conjugal relationship. Let's be a little bit normal here, But then, Vanapasta, okay, maybe separate beds, maybe separate rooms if we haven't done it before yet. So that's the first step. Very practical. It came from Jayadvaita Swami, I was surprised. Wow, okay, Maharaj, yeah, good. So, and another general principle, we are reducing the worldly and family duties, work, business, very natural. When the kids are grown up, you start wondering what for, and you start reducing. And all that is for the purpose of increasing our absorption in spiritual practice. Because often in family life, we may have accepted a few slack habits and, not practicing so strictly, Mangaladi, this, that. So now we can row back to a more stricter, atmosphere in our home life, yes. And we want to increase austerity. That's forest life, yes. Increasing the austerity, minimizing comfort and material attachments. That's the mood of forest life, And then we also, a very important part is we are switching from external activities and achievements more towards internal activities and achievements, And unless we turn towards internal life voluntarily, usually sooner or later, we will be forced to do so through some health crisis. Boom, if we can't stop running, and we voluntarily switch more towards internals, then the health crisis will set in, and then we will be all depressed, and we have not built up some deeper internal life to fall back on, Then easily, if we just keep running and get satisfaction from external achievements, then very easily there is a bit of a vacuum there. It's hollow there. And then when the health crisis strikes, we get all depressed, nobody needs me anymore, So not a good idea. Better to do it voluntarily, otherwise we hit some midlife crisis and some identity crisis and so on. So, and the whole mood of Vanapasa is that we are increasing our dependence on the Lord and his devotees. Yes. Actually, all the ashrams teach us to give up our independence, because that's why we are here in the material world, because we want to be independent from Krishna and we want to enjoy. So, brahmachari, brahmacharini, no independence. You have to do as you are told. You shouldn't even have your own bank account, strictly speaking, as a brahmachari, brahmacharini. So, and then Grihastha life, we are given a little bit of independence, but also not really, because there's husband, there's wife, there's kids. I can't do what I want, And Krishna gives us some opportunity to show how we want to use that little bit of independence, whether we just want to enjoy life or whether we actually want to mold our life really around Krishna consciousness. So in the Vanapasta, we are again, meant to depend more on the Lord. And that's the preparation. Very important part of Vanapasta is also that we are delegating our responsibilities to the younger generation. And we are allowing them to take charge. Yes, handing over. I've got a whole chapter on this, Jadveda Swami also speaks very strongly about this, that we are not meant to hang on to our position until the last breath, Yes, because every generation has a valuable contribution to make to Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. And if the seniors are hanging on to their posts until they're 75, then the younger generation is already 50 by the time death moves them out. So, and that's actually when they should already hand over. So they're missing out, and it leads to complete stagnation. The leader, him or herself, becomes stagnant because they don't move on. They're hanging on to the TP's job for 35 years or something. But hey, there's more things to experience and explore than just being forever on the TP post or whatever it may be, or even GBC post, So they are becoming stagnant. Everybody around them becomes stagnant because they often feel frustrated. They can't make their contribution, because, every generation moves things forward. But if the same person is in the post, it often always stays as it has always been, And then it's frustrating for everybody. And that's how often the revolutions and politics start, because people just, want to take over somewhere or other. And the whole project becomes stagnant. Yes. And I see this on my travels, those projects where the youth is empowered, like Simhachalam, Govindadev and his wife. So they are vibrant, they're dynamic, they attract the youth, and things move on, because especially for a man, let's say between 28 and 45 or 50, he's got a strong drive to achieve things. So that's built into the man's nature, because he's meant to achieve things and move forward. Yes. So, and they have the energy and youthfulness, and they can do so many things. But if they are not given a chance, it brings stagnation into the place. I see it everywhere on my travels. As you observe these things when you're a little analytically thinking there. Yes. So, and another principle is husband and wife spending more time either together or separately in the holy dham or serving at a temple, preaching. It can have various forms. There is not one way of practicing the Vanaprastha ashram, you know. It simply depends on people's natures and capacities. You know, they can either travel together, or he goes there, she stays here, or she goes there and he stays here. You know, sometimes people love to move around, sometimes people hate it. You know, so it's not that a Vanaprastha has to be a traveling preacher or something. No, but you can just spend 1-2 months in one temple, do some seva there, whatever it may be, or, you know, go here, there, or spend 6 months in India when it's cold and grey here, and then when it gets too hot here, then in India, then you come back to Europe, and so that there can be so many variations, you know. Yes, yes. And of course, Vanaprastha ashram is a new challenge in life. So, and it should be accepted under the guidance of a more experienced devotee who is already established in the Vanaprastha mood. You know? Yeah, we need the guidance. Otherwise, you know, we can prematurely and passionately, you know, give everything up or just separate from the wife, the husband. No need. Let's do it gradually and cultivate the proper internal mood and not, you know, yes. Yeah, because this easily happens, you know, I meet this also sometimes that, you know, some say that a man can wear yellow cloth when he's Vanaprastha. I mean, I haven't really seen it in the Shastra, and you know, white is good enough. But yeah, it easily can become a fashion. You know, oh look, I'm in yellow now. I'm a Vanaprastha, and for the women, oh, I'm in white with border. I'm a Vanaprastha. You know, so no, not, you know, like that. So that's why we need guidance of somebody who is more experienced, you know. Yeah. And a few words about the most valuable duty and contribution of the Vanaprastha ashram. So the main and foremost one is that they share their life experience, their wisdom, their realization with the younger generation. Yeah, they actually should become mentors, counselors. We've got a whole book on that topic there too, the importance of having a mentor in life. And the Vanaprasthas are meant to do that. Obviously, very logically, you know, if they manage to keep a marriage together for 30 years and raise their kids in Krishna consciousness, they've got so much to share. And even if they didn't manage to keep the marriage together, still they have a lot of experience to share, you know. So rather than devotees going to their sannyasi diksha gurus with all their marriage issues, they should go to the Vanaprasthas. Yes, you know, sannyasi diksha gurus are not even meant to deal with these things. But again, because Vanaprastha ashram is not established, the gurus sometimes they have shared with me personally that 75% of all their time and energy goes in dealing with their disciples' family issues. You know? Well, it shouldn't be like that. Oh, God, you know. Yes. Yes. So, and in this way, the Vanaprasthas are actually protecting the sannyasis. You know? Yes, yes. Because if a sannyasi has to sit there with his lady disciple and listen to all their, you know, problems of following no illicit sex life and all this, you know, I mean, it's not so appropriate, you know. So, and another contribution is, of course, according to a person's health and according to their capacities and talents, they can contribute in so many ways, you know. Let's say a person has some professional experience, building up a whole business or something. So I'm sure, a person like that can actually give some valuable input how we can become in our communities and temple a bit more professional and organized, with some strategic planning and good marketing, announcing, advertising what we have to offer to humanity, all these things from the professional world, then a Vanapasta can really share this, for example, and so many other things, cooking, puja, teaching, preaching, gardening, whatever. The list is long. So many things can be done, So we can just imagine how much more full-time devotees we would have if that Vanapasta ashram would be established, But because it's not established, people in their old age are still maintaining their big house and their garden and cutting the trees, the branches of the trees and the hedges and mowing the grass there, the lawn, instead of fully diving into Krishna consciousness and making a significant contribution. How much more manpower would we have, and how much we are missing out, Yes, I see it all the time, yes. That capable, experienced devotees who would have so much to offer, they're still sitting in their office and running their show, at 68 from home. And, hey, retire, move on, and explore a whole new, exciting adventure there, Yeah, so, yeah, and I mean, if the Vanapasta ashram is not established, yes, our ISKCON communities miss out on the wealth of life experience, so much unused potential. Yes, so much unused potential, especially also in guiding, because very naturally the Vanapasta's elderly body is not meant to run around all day and lift pots and stand in the kitchen for 8 hours. No, you're meant to reach out and be available for the young devotees, that they have somebody to talk to, In the Western world, everybody's busy, and often the young devotees, they don't even have anybody to talk to and reveal their heart and get some good advice. So that's what the Vanapastas are there for, They can sit there outside in the garden and read and then be available for the devotees, that they can come and talk to them, Yes. Young generation does not receive the valuable guidance, therefore approach sannyasi gurus with their family problems. We said it. Devotees remain attached to their positions and not hand over their responsibilities to the next generation. Stagnation, we talked about it. Senior devotees miss out on cultivating the mood of renunciation and detachment, and remain entangled in deep family ties. And very easily this means another birth. We discussed it all yesterday in detail. How Krishna says we have to remember Krishna alone, not Krishna and your wife, your husband, your granddaughter, and your cat and dog and all that. Yes. So, risk of taking birth once again, And we could have more senior full-time devotees and preachers. Yes. So let me pause here before we start the 3 main principles. Do we have any questions? Yes.
lecture, and there is a question: if we have to live our family life at 50, but our like state system is built that we have to work till 65, and we cannot get this pension. So till that age,
Yeah.
who will pay for it? Who will support us?
Yeah. Good question. It's quite a complex topic. In the book, I'm all talking about it. By the way, even if you can't read English, I have many devotees who read these books just with this app on the phone where you just point your phone at the page and you can read it in your language from your phone. It's pretty good translation. In Slovakia last summer when I traveled there, people bought the whole set and they didn't speak a single word of English. And I was asking them, how do you read them? And they showed me, because I live without a phone. I don't even know about these things, But they showed it to me. Here, this is how we read, and I'm already on page 50, like that. Okay, great, it's like good to know, Yes. So you will find so many things in this book. But just to quickly give an answer. Strictly speaking, the tradition is that the vanapastas should be maintained by the grihastas. The grihastas are meant to maintain brahmacharis, vanapastas, and sannyasis, actually. But because the whole culture is not established, we can't be so naive and say, okay, maintain me or something. And also the vanapastas have to make a contribution so that the grihastas feel inspired to maintain, But because the whole thing hasn't really been started yet, it will take a few generations, That's one thing. Then the whole maintenance is a question of our demands. If we are actually willing to keep a simple life. Basically, it can mean going back to brahmacharini life, then you actually don't need much. You don't need much to keep body and soul together. And that's exactly this project I was sharing, which I started to develop in Kharkov in Ukraine. We had some rooms where these ladies were welcome to live, and the community was taking full, responsibility for them, including all the doctor's bills. We had some committee where we were collecting when anybody had some health crisis. Everybody chipped in and we covered their surgeries and everything, So that's the idea, that if we really keep our demands to a minimum, we don't need much. And ultimately, we should have that faith also in Krishna, that if we are willing to serve, then he will maintain us. And I haven't come, I'm 40 years full-time in Krishna consciousness. I haven't seen a devotee sitting on the street starving. No. Yeah. So it is all a question of our demands and expectations. And it's an individual thing. But I personally have advised people, who I know, don't work until you're 68 just to get a pension. No, it's not worth it. Just pull out, and go back to simple life and serve while you have the energy to serve. Prabhupada also says in the Bhagavatam, Vanapasta has to be taken at 50, not when you're an invalid. So don't wait until you're 69 and you have Parkinson and you're shaking around. So of course, then you cannot leave home and travel and all that. So before invalidity sets in, we have to take the Vanaprastha. And as a rule, around 50 people have still good energy. I mean, I'm 67 this year, and I'm still traveling the world. So, of course, it depends a little bit individually. But as a rule, if you keep a good lifestyle, good diet, and all that, at least 50, 55, you still have some energy to serve. So, and then you make yourself dear and valuable to the devotees, and people will take care of you, Hopefully, hopefully. In the Western world, we talked about it yesterday, it's maybe the culture is not so strongly there. But yeah, so, but this again has to be discussed in a mature way with a counselor, with a mentor, We don't want to, jump into, okay, I give up my job, Vanaprastha, ki jai, We have to be a little thoughtful and look at all the situations and then work out. Or maybe people inherit something little from their parents, or maybe they have some little savings, or maybe they can do something little additional, to temple life. They can teach some English or some Madanga lessons or whatever online or whatever, and do a bit of babysitting somewhere or whatever, just to, get a little bit of additional money. And, so it's a very individual, personal thing, and ultimately everybody has to decide themselves. But I mean, I don't have a pension, I only worked a few years of my life in Germany, 2 years or what, I'm not even registered as living here anymore for 40 years. So, yeah. So, we have to have some little faith that Krishna maintains, and Prabhupada says this in different other books. Krishna even maintains the animal, so why would he not maintain a devotee? And again, it depends all on our standard of life. If we are willing to live simple, we don't need much, But of course, if we want our own place and a car and this and that and some fancy toiletries and makeup and this and that, oh, well, then it will cost, yes. Yes. What else? Yes.
Thank you very much. This is for me also a very difficult point. Even if you are willing to reduce your demands, I tried since 2 years since I'm here, and if you need a flat, and even an Abenteuer, it's over 700 euros, and with a car.
Well, you don't need a flat.
Where shall I live?
Well, there is temples.
We don't have space here.
Let me finish the sentence. There is temples in the world who will be in ecstasy if there is a person who is experienced and intelligent and wants to give the rest of their life in service. There is temples, and they have some rooms. I travel around the world. Often they call it Brahmacharini ashram, but there's elderly ladies living there. There's no young Brahmacharinis. It's all Vanaprasthas, all elderly single ladies who just want to spend the rest of their life serving on the altar or in the garden or in the kitchen. And they are taken care of, even in America, Yes, I can give you a whole list of temples who have that facility. Even Radhadesh, that they also have rooms in the so-called Brahmacharini ashram, and there's elderly ladies living there. Sometimes they share the rooms, but sometimes they can even give you a single room. It is possible. Or you share something with somebody else in the same situation, Or you don't have a whole flat, you're just happy with one furnished room, Ein, how do you say, möbliertes Zimmer, Yeah. Simple, simple, simple. We will get there in a minute. You know, so we don't need a flat for 700 euros. No, no, no. But it's a gradual process. It's a gradual process. You know, so don't hand in the Kündigung tomorrow. But you know, be thoughtful and learn that. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
My situation is a little more individual because I always said I'm not senior, I'm only old. I was already 45 as a kid.
No problem.
I'm not experienced. I have not much to share.
I tell you, the state of affairs in ISKCON is like this, that any temple is desperately needing manpower. Any temple. Yeah. Yeah.
I also don't have so much power. That's the next point. But I'm not healthy.
Anyway, I mean, we have the example in Simhachalam. What's her name? Krishna Kund? No, right? Kishori Kund. You know Kishori Kund in Simhachalam? So she's got her little room, you know, and she's completely happy there. She's elderly, she had already heart surgery and so many things. You know, she used to do a lot, but now I think she just does twice a week the vases and the garland for Nishingadev or something. That's all she does. But you know, she has a relationship with the devotees. She served there for many years. You know, I'm not even sure whether she's Brahmin initiated. Maybe not. I don't think she's ever been. She is, but I haven't seen her doing any puja or anything, you know. So, and she actually was at the point where she wanted to move home to her daughter, you know, but the kids are not fully practicing devotees. So then the management said, no, it's all right, you stay here, you know, you're the flower lady here a couple of times a week. Yeah. And many people, many temples have this mood, that they're happy to just have another face there who can do something little, and they know that person was serving for a few years. That's why we said yesterday, think in which community you want to leave your body one day and go there and serve while you can. Don't turn up there on the doorstep when you're an invalid and say, here I am, I'm a senior devotee, please take care of me. No, go there when you have the energy to serve and make yourself dear and valuable to the devotees. And then hopefully, if they have a little something in their hearts, they will take care. Yeah. We can talk about it more tomorrow in our personal meeting. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, good. Let me move on because we have 9:10, so and we still got 3 main principles here to present. So the idea is, we said, forest life means simple life. So that's the underlying overall principle. The motto is simplify, simplify, simplify. And we start principle number 1. We live simply. We decrease our comfort. We reduce our space of living, and that naturally leads to reduced expenses, right? Very naturally. And as Prabhupada said in that quote, which I read from the back of the book, quitting home is a very important part of vanaprastha. You know, just to retire from earning an income and having no more sex life is not enough. We should not stay in our cozy home. We should leave, come back. Go somewhere, come back. We start by leaving for 1 or 2 weeks somewhere, coming back. And then we leave for 1 month, coming back. And we leave for 2 months, coming back. And then maybe we go for 4 months to India in winter, we come back. So as we leave and come back, we will start realizing, I don't need this flat or house anymore. I'm hardly even there. You know, I'm going here and there and all over the place. So why maintaining this whole place? You know, yes. So extricating ourselves from our cozy comfort, you know, in the home, the cozy, comfortable home. That's an important part of the whole Vanapasa thing, you know, yeah. And I had that realization during pandemic because, you know, I've been living out of a suitcase for 25 years, but then pandemic, I couldn't travel so much anymore. And I still moved around, but I stayed sometimes for 5, 6 weeks in one place. And I could observe, you know, that this cozy, homey attitude snuck in, and I started accumulating a few too many things. And, you know, and I was getting too cozy and homey and settled there. You know, and I almost felt like I'm falling down from my renounced position here, you know, in a subtle mental way, you know. And I was really glad when this pandemic was finished. Let's get on the road again, you know. So, and I only stay 1 week in each place. So after 1 week, usually you get more homey and settled. And just then it's time to move on to the next place. You know, it's a good way to be, you know, yes, if we can handle it with our health and all that. As we say, a rolling stone doesn't gather any moss, you know. And yeah, you may also have that experience when you go somewhere, let's say you plan a trip to India, and it's a bit of a jump into the cold water to leave your cozy home there, right? And you have to, okay, pack your bags, okay, let's see what expects me, you know, and you start moving, you know, so to get out of this cozy home, this is an important thing. And we do it gradually, you know, for longer and longer and longer. And then we come to the point very naturally that we feel this flat for 700 euros is just a burden. No need, you know, yes. Yeah, so the first principle is simplifying our surroundings also, you know, and keep only the absolute necessary things to keep body and soul together. Again, we imagine we are living in the forest, you know. So, very practical. You can start with it today. Go through your cupboards. Get rid of things. Sell it, give it away, or throw it in the bin. You don't have to be fanatic and get rid of everything, you know. All right, you start with one cleaning up session there, and some things which you still feel, oh no, I don't want to get rid of that. Okay, keep it. And then next time around, you get rid of it. You know, start with all the kami books, you know, clear out your cupboards, all these knickknacks people have and this and that, all the porcelain cats and dogs and ducks and whatnot. You know, just, you know, get rid of it. You know, even furniture. Sometimes I stay in people's houses. Oh, they're so cluttered with all kinds of stuff, furniture, too much furniture. You know, I love empty rooms. You know, and if you get rid of things, it really frees your mind. It's liberating. Because all these things we are so attached to, they're all occupying some space there in the subtle body, you know. And by getting rid of them, we free that space to invite Krishna there, you know. Yeah, simplifying, getting rid of things, giving furniture to devotees who just now get married and start their devotional life, just empty things, And if you empty the cupboards and get rid of things, you will realize, I don't need the cupboard anymore. It's just sitting there empty. Okay, let's get rid of it. And you can sell things also second hand on eBay, whatever it's called, or whatever, Yeah, go to the flea market or whatever, and just free yourself from all this stuff, because people accumulate so much stuff, and the bigger the house is, the more stuff you accumulate. It's all cluttering the mind, very liberating. And yeah, let's remember, we will have to leave everything behind sooner or later anyway. We can't take along any of this stuff there. So why, better voluntarily giving it away and get the blessings by being charitable, and the loving exchange of giving gifts, rather than, so better to get the joy of that rather than hanging on to it till the last breath and then it's all pulled away anyway. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so very practical. And we can even start with this, while the kids are still at home. The kids may be 13, 14, they're not quite settled yet, but already we can start getting rid of a few things, no harm. And of course, I didn't mention that the whole Vanapasta idea is really only advisable when the kids are settled. So the girls, the daughters, according to tradition, should be married. So of course these days the girls get only sometimes married when they're 38 or something. So and the parents here in the Western world that may not understand the duty of arranging the husband for the daughter anyway, and she may be out of the house anyway and having her job, even if she's not married. All right, then no need to wait until she's married or something. This is more in the traditional Vaishnav culture like that. So, but yeah, the kids should be at least out of the house and should be kind of settled. Yeah. Otherwise, how can you leave? We don't want to propagate irresponsibility here in the name of Vanapasta, that the husband walks out when the kid is only 10 or something. I'm taking Vanapasta, I'm 50. No, sorry, first you have to take care of your kids and make sure they're settled, yes. Yeah, because all these things are going on, yes. Yeah, so that's the first principle, simplifying our surroundings, and that leads to gradually simplifying our income too, because if we get rid of so many things and we simplify, so, we need less and less money, and as we don't need the big flat anymore and all this, So as we start simplifying our surroundings, gradually we simplify the living space, reduce the living space, and then also no need for all this money to earn, yeah. So it's a gradual process, requires some whole meditation preparation mentally and taking guidance and all that, Yes. So, any question about this? Simplifying our surroundings. Sometimes people say, but yes, where was it? Oh, it was in Kenya. I was invited for lunch. This, Prabhu, his wife left him, his kids were grown up. He lived there with his mother. She was 75 or something, and a big fancy flat, And I said to him, what do you need the flat for? You know, get ready for Vanapasa. And then he said, yeah, I feel this urge, but I want to receive all the preachers and sannyasis. And I said, hey, that's the duty of the householder. The grihasta is meant to open their homes for the sannyasis and then receive them and feed them and accommodate them, but not the vanapasta. You should be one of those who is received in the grihasta's homes. You know? And another time I had where one also elderly couple, I mean, they're also in mid 50 or something, kids are out of the house. They told me with all pride and excitement, oh, we're just building a big house. I said, oh, really? I wasn't so ecstatic. Yeah, we want to receive the Vaishnavas. Hey, it's the wrong phase in life. How long can you take care of a big house? You know, the time will come where you can't climb up the ladder there and fix the dachrinne or whatever, you know. So no purpose to build now a whole house. What the hell? What for? You're over 50, the kids are out of the house, you know. And I said, okay, just rent it out and it's a passive income, or you can sell it later, you know, so continue building it. But yeah, they were completely flabbergasted, you know. So this is when people don't take guidance, you know, they don't ask for advice. Is this now the right thing to do, to build a whole big house when you're over 50 and the kids are out of the house? They don't even want to live there. So what for, you know? But yeah, so the greenhouse's duty is to receive the guests and feed them, you know, because they like to have a cozy home anyway. But if not the vanapastas, it's not that we maintain a whole fancy flat just so we can 3 times a year receive a sannyasi for lunch or something. Doesn't make any sense, you know? Oh, and they were so grateful to hear this from me. Okay, great. So, yes, we'll move out. We will simplify, you know. Yes.
So can you imagine that they would use their house to make vanapasta house that many other vanapastas also can live there? Or?
Well, a facility for the vanapastas should ideally be on the temple property, because they're getting older, you know, and how will they commute back and forward? And, you know, the spirit is to really dedicate yourself to serving, you know, but if you live far away and then sooner or later the point comes when the body falls apart, like I shared yesterday in Ukraine, I had this whole concept of, you know, upstairs is the Brahmacharya ashram, downstairs is some rooms for the Varishta Vaishnavis, for the elderly ladies who want to just serve, and then the other part of the house is some hospice, you know. So then the ladies from that part of the house, when their body falls apart, so they're moving over to the hospice, you know. And then the brahmacharis, they serve them, you know. And the other ladies in the Varishta Vaishnava ashram, they also serve those who are in the hospice, because they know sooner or later I will be the one who's moving over there. And the grihastas also help and help financing and supporting. So like that you can create a whole model, you know, how the ashrams support each other. So if you have a house further away, problematic, you know, to really integrate that. And also who will pay the bills there, you know. They still have to pay bills. Somebody has to pay bills, you know. Maybe not so much if you share it or something, but yeah, it may be a little more difficult. If it's really around the corner from the temple, it's possible, you know. But if it is,
I'm just trying to imagine my house because I have also a very big flat, and what should I do?
yeah, well, so
My friends are mostly, like
get the book, and you will get a lot of interest. I'm discussing all these things in the book. Yeah, even health, approaching attitude towards medical treatments, and there's so much stuff in it,
Yeah, because this is also actually this is really a very foggy kind of issue. Like as you maybe also heard so in ISKCON or maybe in other movements that we were being taught like give up everything and just surrender.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but then there were these terrible moments that elder devotees got sick and they were not insured and they were dependent on, I don't know. So
Yeah.
and then they were shouting around, what did I do? What did I believe? What did I?
Yeah.
I think also
Yes.
it was the cause of this educational, that
Could be.
they were not
Yes.
like properly,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah. I mean, sorry to say, there is still a lot of immaturity here in our movement. I know temples where a Prabhupada disciple was for so many years serving on the altar. And I overheard in a management meeting that they were saying, oh, when he can't do the puja anymore, sorry, he has to move out. Yes. And that poor Prabhu, he was so scared, he couldn't lift the brass deities anymore and all these things, and he was working himself to the ground out of fear that he would be kicked out of the temple. And I immediately stepped in, and when I heard this, I said, hi, what is this? You can't do this. You can't do this. Senior devotee, Prabhupada disciple, has been giving us his whole life for the puja, and then you want to kick him out because he can't do the service anymore? What the hell is that? I got on their case. So, but gradually, and there was even one incident in one temple where one Mataji, she burnt herself. She set fire to herself and she killed herself because she was so afraid. She was getting older. I think she had Parkinson or something. And she was afraid that she would not be taken care of by the temple. But yeah, please, no need for you to be fearful. But yeah, I don't think this will happen here. But yeah, it has been like that in the past. So there is still a fair bit of, learning to be done in our ISKCON movement. And it's gradually, we're getting there because more and more people are getting older and so yeah. But an international Sankirtan movement, it takes some years to mature, And in the early days, yeah, definitely there was so much immaturity there. Definitely. Let me move on to principle number 2. Principle number 2 is simplifying our externals, meaning our dress, and extended externals, different gadgets and things, we have, So simplifying our dress. This is especially also important for women. There is a whole purport, but I'm not sure if we have the time. Well, I could read some part of it where Prabhupada says this. Because see, we women, when we are young and married, we are meant to bring color and beauty into life. That's why we women are also a little more on the bodily concept of life, because the bodily identification inspires us to make ourselves beautiful and attractive and colorful. If it wasn't for the bodily platform, then which woman would stand there in front of the mirror and put the eyeliner on and all that, So that's why Prabhupada builds in a deeper bodily concept. So we want to play that role because life would be boring. I'm sorry to say, if all men had, all people had man's mentality. And often in seminars, not so much now, but often when you look to the man, it's just dark blue, gray, dark green. And then you look over to the women, oh, there's pink and purple and yellow and you know. So it's very clear, usually on bigger seminars, to see the different mindset. Men usually don't walk around in pink jumpers or something, you know, as a rule, you know. Yeah. So, but we women like, you know. So, and that's why it is important for the ladies in the Vanapasa ashram to simplify our externals. And you wouldn't believe how difficult this is for some ladies. Yes, I'm often trying to inspire them to gradually simplify. No, I need colors. I love colors. I also love colors, but for me, it's enough to enjoy the colors on others. I don't have to wear them, you know. Just to see young, colorful, nicely dressed ladies. Yeah, it is uplifting to see nice colors in nature, nice flowers. Yes, it's wonderful. It doesn't mean I have to wear them on my body, you know. Yes. But yeah, people, we women are so attached to being colorful and attractive, you know, as a rule, you know. Yes. Yeah, so it is there for the women. And let me read this purport. I only take one part out. This is from 4th Canto, 28th chapter, verse 44. There Prabhupada says, similarly, when both husband and wife follow the regulative principles of austerity, they remain silent and are not agitated by sex impulses. Silent, he's saying before, he gives the example of the fire that is disturbed, you know, and then it becomes silent and so on. At such a time, both husband and wife are benefited spiritually. One can attain this stage of life by completely giving up a luxurious mode of life. In this verse, the word chiravasa refers to very old torn garments. The wife especially should remain austere, not desiring luxurious dresses and living standards. She should accept only the bare necessities of life and minimize her eating and sleeping. There should be no question of mating. Simply by engaging in the service of her exalted husband, who must be a pure devotee, the wife will never be agitated by sex impulse. You know, so yeah, simplifying, even for the ladies, they should become austere, simple, no luxuries, you know, because if we dress in a more fancy way, that actually stimulates our own sex desire. It's all pretty subtle, but it's there, you know. And as we don't worry about it anymore, that you know calms down all these impulses, you know. Yes, yeah. So that's why for the women also, because often we hear this understanding, the women are not meant to be austere. No, here we go. And there's a few more quotes too, where we have the story, you know, Kadama Muni, Devahuti, you know, how she followed in the mood of her husband, being so austere, not paying attention to her externals because her husband was not in that mood, you know. So no, we women are also, you know, at certain phases of life, we are meant to be austere and simple. There's even purports where Prabhupada says the hair combing is one of the favorite activities of a woman, you know, and in Vanapasta life, no more hair combing and all this. So funny, you know, Prabhupada. Yes, so let's go back to the list here. Yes, so simplifying our dress, no ornaments or makeup, subdued colors, that's how we start. And then gradually we go into white with a border. That's Vanapasta. I'm actually not considering myself a Vanapasta because strictly speaking, Vanapasta is still together in teamwork with a husband. So I'm considering myself a widow because my husband spiritually is dead and gone. He's not practicing anymore, not at this point anyway. So that's why I'm a widow. But for a Vanapasta, where the husband is still in this world, it would be inauspicious to wear white because it means like it's like a bad omen that soon he will die and she will be a widow, So, yeah. So it's white with a border, and it's a gradual thing. You go more into the pale colors of, the pastel pale colors. And then gradually you go into white, and it can be initially with a wider border. And then gradually the border goes smaller and more earthen color like that, It's a gradual thing. It has to feel right inside. It should not be a new fashion here, or look now I'm in white and all this, Yeah, so for the men, well, if they have fancy coaters, so they should cool down the fancy coaters. They're by nature more simple in their dress as a rule. But the man may have other attachments, the Rolex watch and the fancy aftershave and the name brand computer bags and every 6 months the latest gadget there, So I put this all in that category, or the sports car, and yeah. I mean, it's not that the men are free from all these things. They have their own little attachments and things they want to have. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, especially in India, also you see men with some fancy coat. It's almost like some royal, a king's outfit there or what. So yeah, simplify. But yeah, in regards to dress, it's mainly for the ladies, actually. But as I'm saying, it's not only the dress or gold chains. Sometimes you have the man wearing these gold chains and, and things. And, well, in the book, I'm also mentioning that, even all these big beads and what people all put around their necks, Or I personally even have a bit of a problem with these tulsi earrings, I find it maybe even a little offensive to use tulsi devi to decorate ourselves. I have a bit of a problem with this. And I wrote it in the book, and when Jayadvaita Swami went through my manuscripts, where I write this, he said, "Thank you!" Exclamation mark. He put that in. So I thought, okay, good, yes, somebody else feels like this. Yeah, these new fashions, they all have sprung up recently, So and then instead of having some gold chains for the man, then they put all these clunky beads around their neck. Sometimes people have the whole chest full of stuff there, And yeah, I mean, as a Vanapasta, all right, when you're a young grihasta and you want to decorate yourself, okay, go for it. But as a Vanapasta, we should also even get rid of all these things a bit and just keep it simple and just stick to the neck beads, That's our decoration, because there's also a false ego thing behind it, that, oh, look at me, I've got this thing now and that thing, and and all the really carved beads and all this kind of stuff,
Also these fancy beards and tails, 3 tails on the head and earrings. And I can imagine one time when I was in the first class of Bhakti Bhushan Maharaj in, I don't know, 89 or he said like, we devotees, we don't need such stuff. We don't need such jewelry and the men, for example. They don't need earring and I had an earring. Immediately I was after the lecture, I put it out.
I mean, let's put it this way. If you're a family man and it is your nature and desire to be somehow fancy, okay, fine, you know. But then as a Vanaprastha, we should let go of this. We should let go of this. And of course, like Mahaprabhu Vrindavan, there's always all the new things appearing on the market there that it's been only a few years that you can buy all these fancy dark tulsi and in silver and this and that, or the carved, you know, pendants you put on your neck beads with a cow and Radha Krishna and this and that. It's getting more and more fancy every year, you know, so people know how to make money, you know, and they put on, they're expensive too, you know, it's not cheap. So, you know, yeah, there's all these new fashions coming in, you know, yeah. So, all right, we has to go for it, you know. But yeah, even with the Tulsi earrings, I have a bit of a problem, you know. I think Tulsi Devi should not be used to decorate ourselves here, you know. Yes, that's not her use, you know. But yeah, so and it's an ego thing. We want to be different by hook or by crook, you know. So Vanapasta, we have to tone down all these things, you know, because otherwise we simply go from the gold chains to the big fancy Tulsi chains there, you know, so we're just changing one for the other, you know, we're actually not simplifying, you know. Yeah, and hairstyle too, you know, for women, I mean, for the widows, it's completely fine to shave, you know, if there's no husband there anymore, widow, no problem. And for Vanapastas, for the ladies, short, simple haircut, you know. Again, it's liberating to get rid of all the stuff on your head, you know, no more need for shampoo and conditioner and hair pack and all this stuff. Ah, one issue less in your life. It's very liberating, you know, yeah. And just so easy to take care, you know, yeah. I mean, I buzz up every 2-3 weeks, basically. After 3 weeks, I feel, I'm getting too long hair here, looking like a hippie. Let's get rid of it, you know. Yeah. And for the men, often in Grihastha life, people don't shave regularly, you know. So Vanapasta, okay, shave up again every 2 weeks or something. Get back into the routine, you know, because Prabhupada actually was pretty strict in this. He didn't even initiate devotees when they were not shaved up. You know, yes. There's a few stories like that, you know, yeah. So, yeah, like that. And, yeah. So any question about that point? Simplifying our externals. And as we said, it includes gadgets, name brand, you know, this and that and whatever name brands. It's again a whole flashy ego thing there, you know, the Gucci handbag or whatever, you know, a computer bag, or, you know, all these name brands and fancy stuff. And yeah, I mean, the men maybe, you know, they have their fanciness and sportive jackets or cool shoes, and, you know, some have that, you know, yes. So, simplifying, you know, and no need for so many shoes. Some people have 45 pairs of shoes, you know, and you wonder, my God, this is a half a shoe shop here, you know, so, you know, just wear one or two, and when they're worn out, you get another one or two, you know, no need for the whole selection there and all that, you know. Yeah. Any question on that? All right, let's move on to the third principle, which many people say it's the toughest one, simplifying our eating. Again, let's imagine living in the forest. We're not going to have pizza and gulab jamuns and all that. But it will be very simple. And actually, the body demands it. Krishna arranges it so perfectly that once we are over 50, 55, we can't just digest anything. We have to cut out the halava, the chorus, all these things. It's just too heavy, yes. And if we don't do it voluntarily, we will get sick and we have to accept the diet by force, So we can't escape it, And it's all Krishna's divine plan here, just to help us to let go of all these tempting things. So that many people say is the toughest, Let me see what I have here. Yeah, a quote. I will skip the quote because we are running out of time. Yeah, so simplifying the eating. Prabhupada exemplified it. He had his 3-tier cooker, rice, dal, vegetables, chapatis, that as a rule we should stick to the more and more simple diet. So of course there may be a birthday or a feast or something, so okay. Again, we don't want to be too artificial, just jumping higher than we can. Oh no, I'm not going to eat this and that and the other thing anymore. I'm with a Vanapasta now. So but it has to be naturally cultivated and gradually, we should be heading towards that. For example, it's also beneficial as a Vanapasta to take the fasting more serious. So Ekadashi, we can make the habit half-day fast, at least till 12. Or we can say, okay, till 12, and then in the afternoon I just take some fruits and a soup or something. No proper breakfast, no proper lunch, just something simple, and gradually, simplifying the eating, Or we can say, okay, no sugar, let's cut out the sugar. And again, when there's a birthday party, we can accept a little sugar, or we can accept a little mahaprasadam from the milk sweets, But even such a diet, no sugar, it is helpful just to control the tongue, And if we don't do this, very easily we put on weight in our old age and we become fat. We see it quite a bit, because naturally the body will not burn it up. You're not running around so much anymore. So then, you go in this direction. You become overweight. And that's just so burdening the whole body. When we are 10, 15 kilos overweight, it's like running around with a backpack of 15 kilos all day. It burns the joints. I meet people who are younger than me and they need already knee replacement. Well, very often it's because people are too heavy and it wears out the knees, it wears out the hips, the lungs, the heart, the kidneys, the whole body suffers under this being overweight. I mean, here I'm safe to say this because I don't think anybody is fat here or overweight. So, but there's heavy statements in the Bhagavatam where Prabhupada says a person who, he refers to Bhaktisiddhanta and he says Bhaktisiddhanta was severely chastising his fat disciples. And he was saying somebody who is overweight means he has not made any spiritual advancement. Ooh, heavy, Yes, heavy word. And it's very clear, if you're overweight, it means your main source of satisfaction still comes from gratifying the tongue. You haven't developed a higher taste. That's what it means, let's be honest. And sometimes people find all these excuses, yeah, my health, my hormones, my metabolism. Okay. But just the fact that we put on weight means we eat more than what is necessary to keep body and soul together. You know, that's what it means. Or we don't have enough exercise or what, you know. So yeah, it is a serious topic, and yeah, and we get some reactions if we don't really cultivate this mood of simplifying our eating, you know. Yes. Yes, and for the body is so good to have basically every day the same routine. You know, then the body knows, okay, in the morning, this and this comes. Okay, 2 o'clock, this and this and this comes. Okay, evening, just a tiny little snack comes. You know, then, but if every meal the body thinks, oh God, what is this now? Okay, that thing coming now. You know, so how can you digest properly? You know, yes. And if we eat too much, we are tired and you know not so energetic and yeah. So that's the last one, and there is quotes, you know, where it says that a grihasta should just eat roots and leaves, that and berries. You know, he should not cook, you know, food on fire and all this, and just roots and fruits and berries and leaves, you know, raw foods.
But in India, they say you have a healthy body when you are. Like,
Yeah. No. Yeah, there's these jokes, you know, that the brahmanas should all have this belly, you know, and then they're oiling their navel there with mustard seeds, and yeah, they're sitting there boiling the belly like the navel like this. Or even for grihastas, it's a sign of prosperity, of wealth, if you're well fed, and you know. But no, no, this is not the Vaishnav thing, you know. Yes. But you see it a lot in India that people are terribly overweight, and not only in India, America. I did a tour around the US earlier this year. Oh, you know, sometimes people on the planes, they book 2 seats because they don't fit in one. They just don't fit in one seat. You know, my God, terrible.
a friend of mine is like that. He cannot even fly anymore.
So much suffering to be in such big body, you know. But if you're skinny, you're lighter and, you know, more flexible, and yeah. Digesting takes a lot of energy, you know, especially in the evenings when you eat heavy in the evenings, you know. And you wake up with all puffy face and puffy eyes, and especially when you get older, you know, you get all puffy and because all the stuff is still going around in your lymphatic system, not burned up, and you know. Yeah, so these are the signs, you know, Krishna is giving to really slow down, you know. Yes. Any questions on that? Yes.
But how to find the balance? It's not easy because, for example, in my life, I saw here in Germany, I had a routine of eating 3 times a day. So now in India, I have a routine of eating 2 times. So the diet of my man is sometimes a little bit too much for me, but he also likes me to do also he's very conscious of that. And I feel from the bodily thing, it's good, but the mind is so attached, and I see it now when I'm apart, you know, from that. Then the pendulum goes to the other side, you know. It's just going. The mind is like, oh, I'm just, you know, you take everything, you know. I want to do everything because it's like very strange.
Yeah, well, it's a gradual process, and I know this for myself too. Usually when I travel, I'm in a pretty strict routine, but then when I stay in a household where there's all kinds of delicacies, and then all right, I have this and that and so on. But I know, okay, next week I'm moving on, and then I'm not going to eat all of these things anymore and all this, you know. So that's why I'm saying we don't want to be too artificial and force ourselves. But yeah, I mean, it's good to also watch our weight, you know. So sometimes I like to step on the scales and see, okay, what's my weight? You know, I'm conscious of it because, you know, people may think, oh, she is skinny, you know, but no, before I joined Krishna consciousness, I was 20 kilos more, you know. So if I eat, I will put on weight very quickly, you know, but I don't like to be so heavy. So I make sure I step every now and again on the scales. And I mean, you feel it also, you know, but just to keep an eye on it and, you know, and all right, sometimes we may be binging out a bit and having this and that, but then, okay, we've had it. It's enough now. So let's go back to the old routine. But ultimately, it's a question of higher taste. And I'm sure we have this experience all, that when we are busy in service, preparing for Rath Yatra or Janmashtami or Guru is coming or whatever, you know, we almost feel, oh, okay, it's time to eat. I quickly have to eat something to keep bodies and soul together, and so I can serve, you know. So ultimately, it is a question of higher taste, you know. So yesterday we talked about the importance of absorption, you know, that we absorb our minds in whatever we are doing, you know. So especially for Vanapasta, or especially if we are alone, if we don't want to enter a relationship, we have to have a bit of a mission. You know, we have to be on a mission. We have to have some absorption. Otherwise, you know, the idle mind is the devil's workshop, we say. You know, so the idle mind, then you go to the fridge and have a look, oh, what's there, you know, or, oh, maybe I need a new relationship or something, you know. So the idle mind, you know, comes up with all these ideas and suggestions for sense gratification. But if we keep ourselves busy and we are happy in our service, in our sadhana, then, you know, no need for so much eating, you know. I'm sure we all have that experience, right? Isn't it? That if we are happily in our service and we have some excitement, some higher source of satisfaction and pleasure in our life, then, you know, we are not so, you know, concerned with eating, you know. Yes. So, but yeah, it is quite natural, I'd say, that the pendulum swings back and forwards and so on. And I remember, I'm not going to mention any names, but one Maharaj who I know for many years, you know, he was saying something about me being skinny, and I was saying to him, yeah, I like to be skinny. And he was saying, yes, me too, but somehow it doesn't work. You know, because he easily puts on weight and gets a bit chubby, and then he goes on a diet again and so on. So even on that level, you know, people, yeah, the tongue is ferocious and wants enjoyment, you know. So even senior devotees, you know, for them it's also not so easy because they're always offered all the fancy things, and, you know, and if you've got it all in front of your nose, then of course you feel you have to try it all, and you know. So I dare say to some extent it is quite natural and common, let's say common, you know, yes. And again, when we are heading towards death, actually Krishna takes care of that, because you simply can't eat anymore and you don't want anymore. And even if you try and enjoy it, then often you vomit, you can't digest it anymore, you know. So there is a chapter also in the False Ego book on this, how this old age is really crushing the false ego like anything, and we can't enjoy and we can't control anymore and so on, So as we get older, naturally, we are forced, and if we don't accept it, we suffer double. We get the bill in the form of severe health problems, So yeah, it's a whole journey, yes. And as we get older, then we can only digest liquid food and so, and eating can almost become like a torture, or I have to eat, and so yeah, this is all the whole journey there ahead of us, All right.
A short simple formula, like we say in Germany, essen wie ein Scheunendrescher. Eating like a whale worker, you can eat like it, but you have then to do this. You have to
work like a Scheunendrescher. Go in the fields and
it's my personal realization.
Yeah, it's true. I remember in Eko Chakra when I was conducting our Holy Name retreat there, when the big temple was under construction, we saw how the workers were climbing up the bamboo ladders there and carrying the bricks up on their heads there. So, and the diet, sometimes when I started this retreat, it was too heavy. They had this fried eggplant there. And meanwhile, I cut this all out of the menu when I'm coming with my team. But there was one devotee. He was eating too many of these fried eggplants, and he was sick for the whole retreat. He couldn't attend anything. He was really suffering. And then I was saying, well, if you want to have these fried eggplants, you have to join that team there, and you carry the bricks up on your head. Then you can eat the fried eggplants, no problem, So you're in the wrong team, you're in the wrong party. You have to go over there, and then you can have, 5 big pieces of fried eggplant for lunch, but not when you sit all day in the retreat and you don't burn it up, All right, so we'll close the whole seminar on that note. So thank you kindly for coming and taking part in it, and most of you were pretty steadily here every day. And yes, one more last time, I hope I'm not getting on your nerves. If anybody wants some books, please come now, because Dharmadaji is leaving this morning back to Cologne, and whatever books I have left, I have to give to her because I cannot carry them. I can only carry some books to the next place, but not extra, and I cannot keep books here even for the Sunday program. I cannot keep them here because maybe people get them, maybe not so, and if not, what am I going to do? I can't carry them, So please, anybody, if you haven't gotten your books yet, then please get them now, and then I can work out which books go back to Cologne. Okay, thank you so much, and we will have the Sunday program 2:00 on the power of forgiveness. Also a good topic. So please join us again at 2:00. Srila Prabhupada ki